everyone.
Hey, welcome back to what we're calling Mission Control here at the M3 conference, coming to you live from Lakewood Church. I'm your simulcast host. My name is Chuck, Dr. Paul Osteen. He's the real host, and this vision really, Paul, and what we're seeing, all these great breakout sessions that we're hearing, great information. This is all a part of really the entire conference goal, right?
It is, just to connect people that have this heart to, reach the world for Jesus using medicine and any other means they have. And then secondly, just to let them be inspired by people that we just heard. Terry Dalrymple, that was an amazing talk.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is, as they visit the exhibit booths, perhaps find a place where they can get involved, because just about every one of these 90 exhibitors need people to help them.
Yeah.
And so just find their mission. The key is this. The ultimate takeaway would be this. God has something for you to do. Find it and do it. It'll be the most satisfying life that you'll ever imagine.
Yeah, the good news is you don't have to be here in person in order to get the resources that Dr. Paul just talked about. This is available to you for free online. Go to m3missions.com/resources. It's this exact same booklet that we're giving all the attendees here at the conference in Houston, but you can get it. Just go to m3missions.com/resources. And you can get it there. A couple of shout outs. Jessica from Arkansas. Hey, Jessica. She's a PA. She said she just spent 6 months in Ethiopia, but plans to go to your hospital that you do your work at.
She is welcome. Jessica, you're welcome. Come.
Speaking of that, you're going to be going back this time next week. You'll be doing surgeries.
That's right. I leave coming Tuesday, and I'll be over there this time next week. Yeah.
Well, we're glad to have one of your friends here with us as well.
Yeah, I am so excited. If there's an organization that I believe in, I believe in all these organizations that are here, but one of them that's really dear to my heart, it's called the Pan-African Academy of Christian Surgeons. And the reason it's close to my heart is I've been a part of that training of some of the residents, especially at Tenwick Mission Hospital. But what I've seen is the end product of these young men that are not only great surgeons, and I tell people that I would let them operate on me or my family, but secondly, they're godly. And the third thing is they're still, they're not just in it to make money, they're in it to train other surgeons and to go into the rural areas where the needs are really dire. And so the Chief Medical Officer of the Pan-African Academy of Christian Surgeons with us right now, Keir. So glad you're here, a good friend of mine.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Good to be here.
Keir, tell us a little bit about PACS.
Yeah, so as you said, it's a training and discipleship program, really born out of the need to maintain mission hospitals because they have a critical role in the healthcare systems in a lot of these developing countries, and particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. So in the late 90s, mid 90s to late 90s, a number of surgeons that were serving in Africa, so at that point missionaries, expats, got together and said, what do we do about this problem? We're getting older. We're going to go back to the US at some point, or Australia, or wherever they're from. Who's going to carry on the work? We know we're meeting a need. We're doing a lot of surgery, but that's it. And out of that, a guy named Dave Thompson, some people probably know that name. I know you know Dave. Had the courage to start a training program called PACS. So the Pan-African Academy of Christian Surgeons was born at that time. Initially, really a development phase. People, I think, were shocked that God was even making this thing happen. A lot of people said this is a horrible business model, and it is, but isn't that how God does things? He takes what we say is foolish and he makes it into something amazing that only he can do, and that's what he's done with PACS. So over those first 10 years, grew a little bit, really the concept clarified a little bit and became more like a program. And as a program, it's something that can then be exported or at least transferred to other places. And so that in 2006 became a programmatic approach to surgical training and discipleship rather than apprenticeship. Yeah. At that point, spread to other countries of Cameroon. It had been in and out of Niger for a variety of reasons, but Kenya, Ethiopia. Now we're in other countries, 8 all together, even in Egypt and Tanzania and Malawi. We have 10 training programs where we're training over 100 residents at this time. We have 98 certificates we've given to 92 people. 6 of our trainees decided they liked it so much they wanted to do 2 programs, so they have 2 certificates. And really excited to see how God will continue to use PACS to impact a continent, not just medically, surgically, but really spiritually. All of these men and women, I'll call them young men and women now. They weren't so young when I started, but they're young now. These young men and women are believers that are wanting to not just do surgery and not just be excellent at that, not just do medical care, but to really share the gospel. We do all of our training at mission hospitals that are generally remotely located. Those of us who are familiar with the medical mission world, they didn't get put in places where the needs were met. You could argue most of Africa doesn't have its needs met medically and surgically, but specifically the rural areas are really impoverished and really lacking of surgical care. People traveling multiple days just to get surgical care. And out of that aspect, and with the opportunity to meet a medical surgical need, to then have a platform to share the gospel, those are the people we're training, and that is what they're doing. Of our 98 graduates, they're almost all working in relatively remote, and as we would say in the U.S., they're all underserved areas. They may be close to a city, but it's underserved and based on our standards.
Now, Keir, you did this personally for many years in Gabon. Tell us a little bit about that.
What's that?
Tell us a little bit about you. We're one of the trainers. As a matter of fact, one of the speakers today is somebody that you train.
Yeah,
but
good
tell us
friend.
about your time in Gabon, you and Joanna.
Yeah, so we in 2006 moved there. My wife Joanna and our two kids, who were 2 and 4 at the time, so Luke and Sarah. They are now grown up quite a bit, obviously. It's 13 years later, 14 years, I guess, 2020 now. So I had a passion for training and discipleship, but didn't have a place. Didn't really know where that was going to happen and where God might lead me to do that. Felt like it was probably somewhere in the U.S. But through some connections with CMDA, got an email from them, a blanket email, nothing special to me, but the introduction was striking. If I were a surgeon, I would go, is what it said. And my wife, Joanna, reads the email and says, wow, I know a surgeon, maybe we should go. Yeah, so she got the call before I did. In that sense, I was actually on call at the hospital in my residency at the time, and she texted me, or not texting, back then it was paging, so she paged me. I called her back and she says, Keir, how would you like to go to Africa? I think after I picked up the phone, because we hadn't talked about being missionaries, we had not talked about Africa, not even short term. We'd never even considered any of that. So God really spoke to us, and she says, Keir, you told me for the last month you've known that God wants you to do training and discipleship, but you didn't know where. Maybe this is it. So that email was actually from Dave Thompson, and Dave was looking for someone to fill in for him. And we didn't fill in for that year, but we did go then for 2 years, and then 4, then 6, then 8, then 10. And the training started out as a faculty member with Dave, and this was the transition period that I mentioned between apprenticeship to a program. One surgeon to now 2 surgeons. So we did that teaching and training together in that discipleship, learned an amazing number of things from Dave and his experience and his wisdom and his knowledge. He's an unbelievably godly man, and really grew a lot working with him and the residents. I think I learned more from them than they learned from me. I'm not sure they would admit that, but that's how I see it. Learned about their culture, but also learned things about what God really means when he talks about community. What does it mean to share each other's burdens, not just be there and say a nice word, but to really share burdens. I can't say I did it all right. We all have places to grow, and we're all still growing. So that was 10 years of challenging work, wearing many hats, surgical hats, medical director hats, all the things that missionaries do. We all wear many, many different hats, but seeing God really be there every step of the way.
Amazing. You know, to contextualize this, many people don't realize that the Lancet Commission on Global Surgery came out several years ago and basically said 5 billion people in the world do not have access to safe, affordable, timely surgery.
Absolutely.
So it's not like PACS is not doing something that's absolutely needed, because the surgical care, especially in remote areas, is absolutely non-existent. So
Absolutely.
I compliment you on that. Tell us a little bit about Jacques. He was born in Congo. This is Dr. Jacques Eberle, and he was born in Congo, trained partially in Cameroon, and then he finished his training at Gabon with you. Now he's one of our speakers. He's actually in Malawi now, but tell us a little bit about Jacques.
Yeah, so Jacques came to us after 1 year of training. He was in Cameroon at that time, and he came to us in Bongolo, and he was new, he was green, he was all those things, but clearly a godly man who has a presence about him that isn't true of everyone.
And
we have
he's a
some
leader
great trainees. He's a leader, and he walks into a room and you know it, but he's a humble man. He's transformed by Jesus, no question. He spent time with us for those 4 years. As I say, I learned a lot and more from him. During our time, we kind of developed this Paul and Timothy relationship. I think it's more Paul and Barnabas. We're more
Yeah.
colleagues than we are
Yeah.
one leading the other, but he's here at this conference. If you get a chance to hear Jacques speak, you will be amazed.